Welcome everyone. I'm excited to start this journey with you today. Today's presentation is titled Chapter 1, Lesson Number 1. We're going to explore the fascinating world of globalization. In this first lesson, we'll look at its history, how it connects to our modern world, and understand what globalization really means. We'll also differentiate it from globalism, examine the goals and reasons behind globalization using Arjun Apajurai's scapes, and highlight why understanding these concepts is so important today. So, let's dive in and get started. Studying globalization is crucial for developing a sense of global citizenship. When we understand the forces and dynamics that shape our world, we can become more informed, engaged, and responsible members of the global community. This awareness helps us see our interconnectedness and the impact we can have beyond our local environment. Becoming global citizens means exploring important concepts and theories, like those proposed by thinkers such as Manfred Steger and Arjun Appadurai. Their ideas help us navigate the nuances and complexities of globalization, giving us a deeper understanding of how different forces interact on a global scale. The lessons we learn about globalization are vital for understanding the contemporary world. Globalization isn't just a buzzword. It's a defining feature of our time. By studying it, we gain insights into the complex interconnections and interdependencies that shape our daily lives and the world around us. So, in essence, understanding globalization is key to making sense of our modern world and preparing us to participate thoughtfully in the global community. When we talk about the contemporary world, we're really emphasizing that this course is centered on understanding the world as it exists today. The term contemporary itself points to a specific period in history, our own time. It's important to recognize that this period is shaped by many complex factors, and that's where thinkers like Frederick Copleston come in. He was a British Jesuit priest, a philosopher, and a historian of philosophy who provided a very thorough overview of different historical periods. His work helps us see how the past influences the present and how different eras are interconnected, especially when we look at the history of globalization. So, as we explore this theme, keep in mind that understanding these historical contexts is essential for grasping how our current world has been shaped over time. In the ancient period, people's understanding of the world was primarily driven by cosmology, meaning they focused on the composition and realities of the universe around them. This worldview heavily influenced how scholars approached their research, as they aimed to uncover the fundamental truths about the nature of the universe and also humanity's place within it. During this time, the main questions they asked were quite fundamental. What is the world made of? What are its main components, including the elements and beings that make up everything we see? And perhaps most deeply, why was the world created in the first place? These questions weren't just abstract. They guided the entire pursuit of knowledge for scholars of that era. This period is often called the cosmocentric period, highlighting how central the cosmos was to their worldview. Scholars weren't just curious about the physical makeup of the world, they were exploring its underlying realities and purpose. Their focus was on understanding the composition of the universe, identifying the essential elements, and grasping the reasons behind creation itself. So, in essence, the ancient period's perspective was centered on understanding the universe's structure and meaning, an approach that shaped much of early philosophical and scientific thought. It's a crucial foundation for how we continue to explore questions about existence and our place in the cosmos today. On the medieval period, scholars and thinkers were mainly focused on interpreting the Bible and making sure that their ideas and actions were in line with the teachings of the Church and the will of God. They believed that understanding the divine was central to their work. During this time, the church and religious institutions held tremendous power and influence, shaping almost every aspect of life. Knowledge was often centered around questions about the divine, such as the nature of God and his role in everyday life. This focus on religion is why the period is also called the theocentric period, meaning that religion, the church, and God were at the very heart of everything. Scholars of this era dedicated themselves to understanding how events and human actions aligned with God's plan and the teachings of the Church. So overall, the key point here is that during the medieval period, religion was the lens through which all knowledge and understanding were viewed, emphasizing the central role of faith and divine authority in shaping intellectual pursuits. On this slide, we see that scholars during this period were deeply engaged with fundamental questions about human existence. They asked things like, what makes man truly human? Which challenges us to think about the core qualities that define us. They also pondered, what is the nature of human knowledge? Trying to understand how we acquire and interpret what we know. And importantly, they questioned, what is the relevance of religion in human existence? Exploring the role that faith and spirituality play in shaping our lives. Now, this leads us into the key questions of this era, which are central to understanding the shift in worldview during the modern period. This period is often called the anthropocentric period, and that name is very telling. It signifies a major change. The main ideology shifted from being God-centered to being human-centered. Scholars started moving away from the influence of the church and traditional religious authority. Instead, they focused on new knowledge, on understanding human development, and gaining insights into human comprehension. This shift marks a significant turning point in how we view ourselves and our place in the universe, emphasizing human reason, experience, and exploration as the primary sources of understanding. So, in essence, this slide highlights how the modern period brought about a fundamental change in perspective, from divine authority to human agency, shaping the way we approach knowledge, existence, and our role in the world. This shift laid the groundwork for many of the ideas and discoveries that continue to influence us today. The contemporary period is a time of great significance in our history. It's characterized by a society that is constantly changing and evolving, which plays a crucial role in shaping the world we live in today. This era continues to be a major focus for scholars, researchers, and policymakers alike, as we try to understand its complexities and implications. When we talk about shaping the future, we're looking at both the challenges and opportunities that come with rapid transformation. The world is changing at a breakneck pace, and that creates a lot of questions about how we adapt and grow. It's an ongoing conversation, something that's being studied intensely and debated in public forums. This period is often called the sociocentric period because it emphasizes the importance of society itself, its influence, its power, and its role in driving change. Society is no longer just a backdrop. It's a dynamic force that continually molds our environment, our culture, and our way of life. As we move through this era, we see ongoing developments and rapid shifts that shape our future in profound ways. So, in essence, the contemporary period highlights how society's central role influences everything around us, making it a fascinating and vital chapter in understanding our collective history and future trajectory. Let's take a moment to understand the context of the contemporary period and how it relates to globalization. John Maynard Keynes pointed out that the era of globalization roughly began around 1870. This is a significant marker because the period from 1870 to 1914 is often seen by historians as the birth of the modern world. While this view is rooted in economic history, many sociologists today also use this timeframe to understand the social transformations that occurred. As we focus on the contemporary era, there's a clear emphasis on understanding society as a dynamic, constantly changing system. This era also brought attention to the concept and reality of globalization, not just as a buzzword, but as a real, complex process. It's about understanding how different societies are interconnected in multifaceted ways. Globalization, in this context, helped us gain a clearer and more precise understanding of how societies engage with one another on a global scale. It's not just about economic exchanges, but also cultural, political, and social interactions that are increasingly intertwined. This broader perspective is crucial for grasping the full picture of our interconnected world today. Now, moving on to the third stage of globalization, which began in the late 20th century. This phase was largely fueled by rapid advancements in technology, communication, and transportation. These innovations made it easier than ever for countries, companies, and individuals to connect and collaborate across borders. As a result, we saw a significant increase in global interconnectedness and interdependence. Basically, countries became more reliant on each other's goods, services, and information, creating a truly globalized world. This stage highlights how technology has become a driving force behind globalization, shaping our economy, culture, and even politics today. It's a continuation of the ongoing process of shrinking distances and building bridges across nations. So, instead of experiencing the positive aspects of globalization, people during this time faced setbacks and regression. This was due to the tumultuous events and difficult economic conditions that came before the first stage of globalization. When we talk about regression, it means moving backwards rather than forwards. Instead of progress, there was a sense of decline. The economic conditions of this period were marked by patterns of economic tyranny and a focus on individualism. These factors actually contributed to the early stages of globalization, but in a way that was regressive rather than progressive. Specifically, the period before the first stage was dominated by major events like World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II. These events fueled increased conflict and heightened nationalism. Instead of fostering cooperation and integration, they actually reversed the progress we might have hoped for in global interconnectedness. So overall, this slide highlights how, during this time, global interactions were characterized more by turmoil and setbacks than by positive growth and progress. The second stage of globalization kicked off at the end of World War II, marking a new chapter in how nations interact economically. During this period, a significant global economic regime was developed at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. This was a pivotal moment because it laid the groundwork for international economic cooperation moving forward. At the conference, key institutions were established to promote stability and growth. One of these was the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT, which aimed to reduce tariffs and trade barriers among countries, encouraging freer trade worldwide. In addition, the conference led to the creation of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, designed to oversee monetary policies and provide financial stability. Alongside that, they established the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, known as the IBRD, which later became the World Bank. Its role was to support reconstruction and development projects, especially in war-torn and developing countries. All of these institutions, GATT, IMF, and the World Bank, were fundamental to shaping the second stage of globalization. They helped create a more interconnected and cooperative global economy, setting the stage for the economic integration we see today. This slide highlights how these developments at Bretton Woods were crucial in establishing the framework for international economic relations during this period. Now, in this third stage of globalization, we see how rapid technological progress in transportation, information, and communication has dramatically lowered the costs of moving goods, capital, people, and ideas across the globe. This shift has really helped to establish globalization as the dominant force on the world stage. At the same time, we're witnessing the rise of the newly industrialized countries of East Asia. These nations started playing a much more prominent role in the global economy, contributing to the shifting power dynamics we observe today. This stage also marks a significant turning point, the late 1970s. It was after the end of the Bretton Woods monetary system, which had been the framework for the global economy since the end of World War II, that this new phase of globalization truly took off. So overall, this third stage is characterized by technological advancements that made global exchange more efficient, the emergence of influential East Asian economies, and a major shift in international monetary policies. All of these elements together have shaped the current landscape of our interconnected world. Manfred Steger, a well-known scholar in global studies, defines globalization as the expansion and intensification of social relations and social consciousness across world time and world space. What this means is that globalization involves how our social connections and awareness are growing and becoming stronger across the entire world. Steger emphasizes the importance of interconnectedness and interdependence among different regions and societies today. This idea highlights how, in our modern world, what happens in one part of the globe can directly affect others. It ties into the overall theme of this presentation by showing how deeply globalized our world has become, shaping our social, economic, and cultural landscapes in profound ways. Let's take a closer look at how globalization unfolds. First, we see intensification. This means that the connections between countries are growing not just in number, but also in strength, speed, and influence. The magnitude of these links is increasing, and they're happening faster than ever before, which significantly amplifies their impact on our world. Next, we have expansion. This refers to how social, economic, and political activities are reaching beyond traditional borders. What happens in one part of the world can now quickly influence distant regions, thanks to technology and communication networks. As Steger points out, globalization is both happening and being shaped by these processes. When a country or society expands and deepens its connections, whether economically, politically, culturally, or socially, this is how globalization is realized. These expanding interdependencies don't just happen by chance. They are driven by deliberate actions and ongoing developments across the globe. Overall, understanding these dynamics helps us see how interconnected and interdependent our world has become. It's not just about trade or travel anymore. It's about a complex web of relationships that are constantly evolving and intensifying. Now, let's look at how massive shopping centers have emerged around the world. These are not just places for buying goods. They actually reflect the interconnected nature of our global economy. You can find commodities from all regions of the world in a single shopping trip, which shows how countries and markets are now linked like never before. This interconnectedness is a key aspect of globalization. Globalization involves the stretching and widening of social relations and activities across borders. It's about more than just trade. It's about the deepening interdependencies between countries. For example, today's financial markets are highly interconnected, meaning that economic events in one part of the world can quickly impact others. This expansion of social relations and economic ties helps us understand the broader picture, how our world is becoming more integrated, more connected, in both daily life and global finance. Let's talk about intensification, which is really about how our social relations, activities, and dependencies are becoming more solidified and interconnected across countries. As local and global societies interact more closely, they start to influence each other in profound ways. A key point here is interdependence. Think about the internet. It can relay information from thousands of miles away in just seconds. Or satellites that provide us with real-time images and videos of events happening on the other side of the world. These technological tools are making our global connections more immediate and tangible than ever before. Speaking of technology, advancements play a huge role. They accelerate, strengthen, and deepen our social exchanges. Events that happen far away from us can shape our local realities, and vice versa. This interconnectedness means that what happens in one part of the world can quickly impact others, fueling the process of globalization. And this all ties into the idea of worldwide social relations. As these connections intensify, our social interactions become more globalized. Local happenings are no longer isolated. They are embedded within a broader global context, influencing and being influenced by distant events. So, in essence, intensification is about how our world is becoming more interconnected and interdependent, driven by technological progress and the expanding scope of social relations. This is a fundamental aspect of globalization, shaping our interconnected world. Social relationships between nations play a crucial role in creating broader and more meaningful connections. These connections help foster cooperation on global issues that affect us all. When countries work together, they can address challenges like climate change, health crises, and economic stability more effectively. Now, this idea of broader connections is driven by technological innovation and political decisions from different nations. These advancements and choices enable new forms of social harmony that go beyond just local or regional arrangements. They allow us to build relationships and collaborate across borders in ways that were not possible before. This process of enabling new harmony through globalization creates fresh connections and multiplies existing social networks across different countries. It's like weaving a more extensive, interconnected web where ideas, resources, and support can flow more freely. So, in the bigger picture, these social relationships are fundamental in shaping a more integrated and cooperative world. They help us overcome boundaries that once separated nations, fostering a sense of global community and shared responsibility. Understanding the social consciousness of the global situation means more than just being aware of current events. It also involves recognizing new technologies, innovative ideas, and other dimensions that can significantly contribute to nation building, economic growth, and political stability. This awareness is essential because it helps us navigate the complexities of our modern, interconnected world. When we talk about awareness of new dimensions, we're referring to how our experiences of global interdependence gradually influence both our personal and collective identities. These changes can be dramatic and affect how we act and engage with the world around us. This evolving social consciousness fosters a sense of global citizenship, where we see ourselves as part of a larger, interconnected community. Now, globalization is not just about the tangible links, like trade or communication networks, but also about how individuals become more aware of their growing social interdependence. More and more, people realize their involvement in a global society, sharing experiences and identities that go beyond geographical borders. This heightened awareness of interdependence is what shapes social consciousness today. It encourages us to think beyond national boundaries and see ourselves as part of a broader, interconnected world. This perspective is vital for addressing global challenges and contributing positively to our shared future. As James Mittelman notes, globalization has a powerful impact on how we experience social relations by compressing both time and space. Essentially, this means that globalization happens seamlessly across the world, without being limited by geographical distance or time zones. When I connect to the internet, or when I buy, wear, or eat imported products, that's a clear example of globalization in action. It's like a continuous, ongoing process where the world is interconnected, creating a shared experience across borders. This interconnectedness means that globalization isn't just happening in one place or at one time, it's happening all the time. It's a 24/7 phenomenon, constantly in motion, regardless of where or when we are. Social relations, economic activities, cultural exchanges, they all occur in real time, around the clock. Understanding this helps us see how deeply integrated our world has become, and how globalization shapes our daily lives, making the world feel smaller and more connected than ever before. The presence of social relationships is actually a prerequisite for globalization to happen. Without these connections between different nations and societies, globalization simply cannot take root or grow. It's these social links that create the foundation for global integration. Globalization depends heavily on the existence of these relationships, because they facilitate the exchange of ideas, goods, and culture across borders. If a country or society is completely closed off, with no social ties to others, then globalization becomes nearly impossible. This brings us to an important point. Globalization is very much about place and location. It's not just an abstract concept. It's rooted in specific spaces where these social relationships are built and maintained. Without physical or social spaces where nations come together, the process of globalization can't really occur. So, in essence, for globalization to flourish, we need open societies that actively foster social connections, and these connections happen within particular places, whether countries, cities, or communities, that serve as hubs for interaction. This idea of world space is central because it highlights that globalization is a geographic and relational phenomenon, dependent on the social fabric that links us all across the globe. So, the academic debate over the scale of globalization really centers on whether we should think of it as a single, unified process, or as something more complex and differentiated. This idea of multidimensionality is crucial here because globalization isn't just one thing. It has many layers and aspects that need further explanation. Different scholars have analyzed and interpreted the social processes that make up globalization in various ways, which adds to the richness and complexity of the debate. Manfred Steger points out that even though we've arrived at a working definition of globalization, there are still many areas where scholars disagree. For example, globalization is an uneven process, meaning it impacts different regions and populations in very different ways. Some areas may experience rapid economic growth, while others might face increased inequality or social disruption. Scholars also have diverse, and sometimes contradictory, views on key issues like what exactly defines globalization, its scale, what causes it, the timeline of its development, its impacts, the trajectories it might take in the future, and even the policy responses it requires. These disagreements highlight just how complex and contested the concept of globalization truly is, and they remind us that understanding its full scope requires considering multiple perspectives. This ongoing contestation is a vital part of our broader discussion about how globalization shapes our world. Manfred Steger suggests that there's actually another way to look at global society, and that way is through the lens of globalism. But interestingly, when we talk about these ideas, the term globalization tends to be used more often and with more weight than globalism itself. So, in this part of the presentation, we're going to explore why scholars prefer to focus on globalization when trying to understand how our world is connected and changing. We'll see that globalization emphasizes the processes and impacts that are shaping our global society today, which helps us grasp the complexity and dynamism of these interactions better than the more ideological concept of globalism. Overall, this choice reflects a desire to analyze the actual mechanisms and effects of global interconnectedness, rather than just the ideas or ideals behind them. Globalism is all about promoting global integration, creating a more unified system across the world. This usually isn't a problem when we're talking about the economy or even culture, because many multinational companies, like McDonald's or Toyota, use standardized systems that work everywhere. But when it comes to politics, things get trickier. A nation cannot simply give up its sovereignty to be politically unified with others. That's a fundamental issue. Steger points out that globalism is pushed worldwide by a powerful group of social forces, mostly based in the global north. These include corporate managers, executives from big transnational corporations, lobbyists, journalists, PR specialists, writers, state bureaucrats, and politicians. They serve as the main advocates of globalism. They flood public discourse with idealized images of a consumerist, free market world. Because of this influence, globalism has become a widespread belief among powerful people who see global economic integration as beneficial for everyone. They argue it spreads freedom and democracy across the globe. So, at its core, globalism promotes a vision of interconnectedness that, for many, seems to bring progress and shared prosperity. But it's also important to consider the perspectives and interests behind this widespread advocacy. The call for globalization is more favored than globalism, mainly because it emphasizes building connections between and among countries without sacrificing their core characteristics. When we talk about globalization, we're referring to fostering relationships that respect each country's territory, citizens, government, and sovereignty. It's about creating a more interconnected world while still honoring each nation's unique identity. Globalization also promotes empowerment among the citizens of the world, rather than concentrating power solely within a few dominant social forces. It's about giving people everywhere a voice and a role in shaping our shared future. Another important point is that without a clear distinction between globalism and globalization, we risk misunderstandings. Many anti-globalization activists criticize globalism specifically, But if we don't differentiate properly, we might wrongly associate all forms of global engagement with negative aspects. Understanding these differences helps us see why globalization is generally viewed as a more positive and inclusive approach, one that encourages cooperation while respecting sovereignty. This aligns perfectly with our overall theme of promoting balanced, respectful, and sustainable global connections. Another important discussion in globalization studies is the fact that there are many related and overlapping themes that are often used interchangeably with globalization itself. For example, we have terms like globality, globalism, and transnationalization. While these concepts are related, they each have their own nuances and meanings. This overlap can lead to confusion, especially for those trying to understand the broader picture. It also increases the risk of conceptual stretching, where the boundaries of what we mean by globalization become blurred or overly broad. Recognizing these distinctions is crucial because it helps us better analyze the different dimensions of global interconnectedness and avoid oversimplifications. This discussion ties into the overall theme of the presentation, which is about understanding the complexity and multifaceted nature of globalization. So, Steger introduces an interesting idea here. The concept of globality might not be the final stage of social development. Instead, he suggests it could evolve into what he calls planetarity. This would be a new kind of social formation, made possible by successful efforts to colonize our solar system. It's a fascinating thought. Imagine extending our social and economic systems beyond Earth itself. He also points out that society could imagine different ways of organizing itself within this global framework. On one hand, we might develop a system based on individualism and competition, aligned with a capitalistic economic model. On the other hand, we could envision a more communal approach, cooperative, less driven by capitalistic relations, emphasizing shared resources and collective well-being. According to Steger, globality refers to a condition where economic, political, cultural, and environmental connections and flows are so interconnected that many of our traditional borders and boundaries become less relevant. Think of how global trade, communication, and cultural exchange have made national borders less significant in some ways. However, it's important to remember that globality isn't necessarily a final destination. It's more like a transitional phase, something that will eventually give way to new, qualitatively different social formations. These future formations could be quite distinct from what we understand as globality today, shaping the next stage of our social evolution. Connecting this to the overall theme, it's about understanding how our social structures are constantly evolving, influenced by technological, environmental, and political changes, and how these shifts might lead us toward entirely new ways of living and organizing society. As we look at the social condition of globality, what really stands out is how much more mobile people, ideas, and cultural products have become across borders. This increased movement has made us much more aware of the incredible diversity around the world, highlighting the importance of cross-cultural understanding and cooperation. It's not just about geographic boundaries anymore. It's about how we connect and interact in a globalized society. Globality also challenges traditional ideas of identity and belonging. As individuals and communities navigate this rapidly changing landscape, they often find themselves reevaluating what it means to be part of a larger global community. The boundaries we once relied on are breaking down, leading to a shared global consciousness that influences how we see ourselves and others. When we talk about globality, we're referring to a social condition where everything, people, cultures, economies, is becoming more interconnected and interdependent. This isn't just about economics or politics. It's about social and cultural integration, too. It's a complex, dynamic process that reshapes how societies function and how individuals relate to the world around them. So, in the context of our overall theme, understanding this social condition of globality is crucial because it explains why our world feels more connected than ever before, and why that connection brings both opportunities and challenges for us all. Let's take a closer look at how globalization can be broadly categorized into three main areas: economic, political, and cultural. Today, I'll focus on economic globalization, which is really about the increasing interconnectedness of economies around the world. This involves the rapid flow of capital, technology, and goods across borders, creating a more integrated global marketplace. When we talk about economic globalization, we're referring to how trade in goods and services is stimulated by these massive flows, and how this has led to the rise of powerful transnational corporations that operate across multiple countries. Additionally, international economic institutions, like the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund, play key roles in shaping the global economic order. All of these elements highlight how interconnected our economies have become, which is a central theme in understanding the broader process of globalization. This stage of globalization is really marked by a few key developments. First, we see a rapid expansion of international trade, meaning countries are exchanging goods and services more than ever before. Along with that, there's been significant growth in multinational corporations. These are companies that operate across multiple countries, shaping global markets. Additionally, international financial institutions and agreements are playing an increasingly influential role, helping to facilitate and regulate this interconnectedness. When we talk about economic globalization, it's all about how national economies are becoming more integrated and interdependent. This involves the global flow of goods, services, capital, labor, and technology, everything moving across borders more freely. Ultimately, these trends are creating interconnected economies that influence each other on a much larger scale, highlighting how deeply our world is intertwined today. Let's talk about the growing influence of intergovernmental organizations, or IGOs, and how they are a key aspect of political globalization. These organizations operate across national boundaries, meaning they work beyond the borders of individual countries. Because of this, they play a significant role in shaping political dynamics and governance not just at the regional level, but on a global scale as well. Now, this brings us to an important point about political globalization, challenging traditional notions of state sovereignty. In the past, sovereignty meant that a country had full control within its borders. But now, political dynamics are no longer confined within territorial borders. Countries are increasingly influenced by and involved in these international organizations, which creates a sense of belonging to a global community that goes beyond just the nation-state framework. So, in essence, political globalization is transforming how we think about sovereignty and community. It's shifting the focus from isolated nation-states to a more interconnected, global political landscape. This interconnectedness is a fundamental part of the overall theme of globalization, illustrating how our world is becoming more integrated and interdependent. To avoid the problem of overgeneralization, it's really important to make clear distinctions between different aspects of social life. For example, we should differentiate the economic, political, and cultural spheres because they each have their own dynamics and influences. When we talk about globalization, a lot of times we focus on the economic and political sides, but cultural globalization is just as significant. It's about how meaning is constructed, articulated, and shared across the world. Cultural globalization involves the intensification and expansion of cultural flows. So think about how language, music, and images act as major forms of symbolic expression. These are the ways culture communicates and influences societies globally. So, understanding this helps us see how culture becomes a key part of globalization, shaping identities and perceptions worldwide. Overall, recognizing these distinctions and the role of symbolic expression helps us better grasp the complex, multifaceted nature of globalization, especially when we consider its cultural dimension. So, while globalization has definitely contributed to cultural homogenization, it's also important to recognize that it has actually promoted greater cultural diversity. How does that happen? Well, as people and communities interact and exchange traditions and identities, they bring their unique cultural elements into this global mix. This interaction creates a richer, more diverse cultural landscape. Now, a big driver of this cultural globalization has been the rise of global media and communication technologies. Think about how entertainment, news, and popular culture are now shared and consumed worldwide. This sharing has helped us learn about different cultures in ways that weren't possible before, making the world feel a little smaller and more connected. This leads us to the concept of cultural exchange. Through increased interaction, ideas, values, and practices are crossing borders more than ever. People are not just consuming global media, they're actively exchanging cultural elements, which in turn fosters understanding and appreciation across societies. So, in essence, globalization isn't just about making cultures uniform. It's also about creating opportunities for diverse cultural expressions to flourish and intertwine, enriching our global community. These scapes not only describe the reasons for globalization, but also represent the ways in which globalization encourages greater interconnections between countries and communities around the world. When we talk about advocating connections, we're referring to how these different scapes serve as frameworks that highlight the diverse drivers behind globalization. Apogei's concept of scapes, which includes ethnoscape, technoscape, idioscape, financioscape, and mediascape, helps us understand the complex and interconnected forces shaping our world today. These scapes illustrate how cultures, economies, and societies are constantly intertwined and influencing each other across borders. Arjun Apogei, an influential anthropologist and social theorist, has really contributed key insights into the reasons and goals of globalization through these scapes. His work emphasizes that globalization isn't just about economic growth or technological advancement. It's also about how different spheres of life are interconnected, creating a web of global interactions. In essence, these scapes are crucial for understanding the multiple layers and dimensions of globalization. They reveal why globalization occurs and what it aims to achieve, primarily increased connection, interaction, and shared influences across the globe. Ethnoscape refers to the movement of global citizens across state boundaries. It includes a variety of people such as labor migrants, refugees, and leisure travelers. These individuals move for different reasons, whether out of necessity or the desire to find better opportunities for themselves and their families. This concept helps us understand how people are constantly on the move, shaping cultural and social landscapes across the world. It's a key aspect of globalization, connecting places and people in ways that affect economies, cultures, and identities. Recognizing the ethnoscape allows us to see the human side of global migration and mobility, which is central to understanding the broader themes of interconnectedness and change. The rapid pace of human technological innovation has really transformed our world, making it more interconnected than ever before. New inventions and breakthroughs are happening all the time, constantly shaping and reshaping our global landscape. One key concept I want to highlight here is the idea of the technoscape. This refers to the global flow of gadgets, appliances, automobiles, and the internet as technology evolves and spreads across borders. It's like a seamless movement of technology that connects different parts of the world, fueling innovation and economic growth. Understanding this flow helps us see how interconnected our world has become through technology, which ties back to the overall theme of how globalization influences our societies. Now, let's explore how the movement of ideas plays a vital role in shaping our interconnected world. Whether through education or politics, these flows of ideas help us connect with others, share beliefs, and debate values and visions for the future. This interconnectedness means that people and nations aren't isolated. They influence and learn from each other across borders. When we talk about the political movement of ideas, we're referring to different ideologies and concepts that leaders and states use to shape discourse. These ideas can influence policies worldwide and steer the direction of international relations. Similarly, the educational movement of ideas is just as important. It happens when individuals share their personal views on platforms like Facebook or present research in a global context. This kind of exchange allows knowledge to flow freely across borders, broadening perspectives and fostering understanding. All of these processes, political and educational, are part of what we call the ideoscape. They highlight how ideas travel and transform, creating a web of interconnectedness that binds us together in a shared global community. Ultimately, this movement of ideas helps us understand our world better and work towards common goals. The financiascape is a crucial aspect of globalization because it highlights how interconnected our financial systems are. This interconnectedness has significant impacts on economies, businesses, and individuals around the world. When we talk about globalized finance, we're referring to the way money moves across borders seamlessly today. Right now, the pace of global money transfer is faster than ever. Financial hubs, think of places like New York, London, Hong Kong, experience nearly immediate effects on their economies from these rapid transactions happening worldwide. This speed can influence markets almost instantaneously, which is a remarkable change from the past. The term financiascape specifically relates to the movement of money across political borders. This kind of economic exchange has been happening for centuries, but what has really sped things up is the use of currencies and financial tools that make these transactions quicker and more efficient. So, in essence, financiascape captures this ongoing, rapid flow of money that connects different parts of the world. It's a vital component of globalization, shaping how economies grow and respond to global events today. Mediascape shows us how easily people are connected through the flow of cultural and communication media across borders. This interconnectedness helps foster a sense of global unity and shared experience. For example, think about K-pop music. It's not just popular in Korea, but it's anticipated and loved by fans all around the world. This global interest even influences other cultural aspects, like Korean foods and fashion, making them trendy worldwide. When we talk about mediascape, we're referring to the movement of media across borders, things like television, the internet, and social media platforms that create a vast array of cultural content. This content links people from different countries, breaking down geographical barriers and promoting cultural exchange. So, through Mediascape, we're seeing how media acts as a bridge, connecting people globally and shaping a more interconnected world. Though we often look at these scapes individually, it's important to remember that they actually come together to form a rich and complex tapestry of interconnected global forces. These forces shape our world in ways that are deeply intertwined. Recognizing how these different scapes depend on and influence each other is crucial if we really want to understand the multifaceted nature of globalization. When we try to separate these scapes, we can miss the bigger picture. They don't operate in isolation. Instead, they are intricately linked, constantly affecting one another. To truly grasp the full scope of globalization and its far-reaching impacts, we need to adopt a holistic approach, seeing the whole picture rather than just individual parts. Arjun Apajurai's concept of these 5 scapes highlights just how interconnected they are. While each one can be studied on its own, they're really part of a larger, dynamic system. Each scape plays a significant role in shaping global movements and overall global change. So, understanding them as a whole is essential for a complete picture of globalization and its ongoing evolution. Let's look at how the clothing industry exemplifies the interconnectedness of Apajurai's 5 scapes in globalization. First, the transnational corporations responsible for making these shirts are part of the global capitalist ideology, or what he calls the ideoscape. This reflects the spread of economic ideas and corporate influence across borders. Next, the finances used to produce and distribute these shirts come from Western companies that leverage cheaper labor costs in other countries. This is the financiascape at work. It shows how money flows across borders to support manufacturing in places with lower wages. Then, we have the equipment and technology needed to create the shirts, which are purchased and delivered by foreign producers. This is the technoscape. It highlights the global exchange of advanced tools and machinery. Now, consider the workers who make these shirts. Many are individuals migrating from rural areas to urban centers, disrupting traditional living patterns. This is the ethnoscape. It captures the movement of people and cultural shifts happening as a result. Finally, the marketing and advertising of these shirts are tailored specifically for foreign consumers. This is the mediascape. It demonstrates how media shapes perceptions and drives consumption across different cultures. Altogether, these five scapes are deeply interconnected, illustrating how different aspects of globalization, economics, culture, technology, migration, and media are all intertwined in the clothing industry and beyond. So many experts are now arguing that globalization, which has shaped our world for decades, is actually now revering. This process is often called deglobalization, and it's important because it introduces new challenges for both businesses and economies to navigate effectively. When we talk about navigating disruption, we see that big events like the anti-World Trade Organization protests, the 9/11 attacks, the financial crisis, and more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic have all played a role in pushing us away from that interconnected, globalized world. These events have increased feelings of insecurity, led to more volatility, and caused rapid changes in how countries and companies operate. Now, for many years, we experienced a tremendous rise in interconnectedness. More trade, more exchange of ideas, more cultural sharing. That's what we call globalization. It's been a defining trend, bringing the world closer together economically and socially. But recently, we've seen a shift. The tide is turning toward deglobalization. It's a complex and ongoing process that affects how nations and businesses approach international cooperation. And understanding this shift is crucial because it impacts everything from supply chains to international partnerships. It's a vital part of the broader story of how our global economy is evolving. So, deglobalizers argue that international economic institutions like the World Trade Organization or the International Monetary Fund are losing some of their influence. They believe that nation-states are reasserting their power and taking control back, which shifts the balance away from global organizations. They also point out that the volume of tradable commodities isn't what it used to be, suggesting a decline in global trade overall. This indicates that countries are trading less or perhaps trading differently, which signals a move away from the fully interconnected global economy we've seen in the past. Additionally, deglobalizers claim that the mobility of people across borders has reduced. They argue that fewer people are moving around internationally compared to before, which again points to a retreat from the open, interconnected world we once knew. Overall, these examples of deglobalization, whether it's institutions, trade, or mobility, highlight a broader trend of countries pulling back from the global integration that characterized previous decades. It's a reminder that globalization isn't a one-way street, and we're seeing some shifts toward more national-focused policies and behaviors. So, as we can see here, the term deglobalization doesn't quite capture what's actually happening today. Instead, we're witnessing a new phase of globalization, one that's much more interactive and connected than ever before. This shift isn't about people or objects moving around more. It's about data, information, and ideas flowing more freely and rapidly across borders. And this new phase isn't just a passing trend. It's here to stay for the foreseeable future. Over the past decade, we've seen an incredible surge in digital data and information exchange. In fact, the volume of data has grown by 45 times during this period. And the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this trend even further, pushing us to rely heavily on digital platforms like Zoom for communication. Now, more people than ever are digitally connected, and we can do so many activities online that previously required physical presence. This shift highlights how globalization is evolving into a more data-driven, digital ecosystem. It's not just about moving goods or people anymore. It's about the seamless flow of information and ideas, making our world more interconnected than ever before. Globalization is an ongoing and evolving process that continues to shape our world in many ways. It's not just a buzzword. It's a reality we all live with every day. As citizens of the contemporary world, understanding globalization is crucial because it helps us grasp the opportunities it offers and the challenges it presents. By recognizing how interconnected our economies, cultures, and technologies have become, we can better navigate this complex landscape. This understanding enables us to make informed decisions, participate actively in global affairs, and adapt to changes more effectively. Ultimately, globalization touches every aspect of our lives, and being aware of its importance empowers us to contribute positively to our interconnected world. This is why, in this presentation, we've emphasized the significance of understanding globalization. It's a key step toward engaging responsibly and proactively with the world around us. It is very important to note that in today's world, the focus on globalization is largely driven by its socio-centric characteristics. As citizens of this interconnected global society, we need to understand that globalization is more than just economic integration. It's about expanding and deepening the social relations and awareness between nations. When these connections grow stronger, they help foster mutual understanding and cooperation. And as a result, the global economic system becomes more dynamic, resilient, and able to flourish. So, in essence, globalization strengthens our shared social fabric, which in turn fuels economic growth and development across the world. This interconnectedness is at the heart of the modern global landscape and underscores the importance of our collective role within it.